Hello folks, this is Dr. Dell, and this is going to be the Uncle Jack lesson number 3. You go watch the first 2 if you've missed them. We're going to talk in this lesson about really beginning to learn the decimal place system, which is critical in understanding numbers. Now, in the first Cheerio lesson, as you'll know, we learned about the first 10 digits, 0 through 9, and we corresponded them with a certain number of Cheerios. Now, here I'm using pennies, or 1-cent pieces. And you can fill this in, 3, you have 3 above that, you have 9 here. And this is what we learned about. We began to learn about addition and subtraction of these small numbers, and we learned their names, of course, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, etc. And then the next question is now, what happens when you want to go past the numeral 9? That's the last of the single-digit numerals we have is 9. And then what are you going to do? And this was a conundrum that our ancestors were faced with. And this is what the next thing a student has to learn. And this is what Uncle Jack taught me using money, because he thought this was a good time for me to begin to learn about money as well. So remember, for the digit 9, I have 9 pennies. And now the question is, what's the next one going to be? Okay, now this is what Uncle Jack taught me. Now I'll remind you that 1 penny, 1 cent back in 1942 is worth about 15 cents today. In 2017 when I'm doing this video. And so it had quite a bit of buying power, but still it was limited what it would buy. And if you wanted to buy a more expensive item, you certainly didn't want to have to pay for it in pennies. And of course everybody knew that, and Uncle Jack said, so Craig, here's what the deal is. He said, the government has created another coin, and we'll call it a 10-cent piece, and it's a little silver coin. And these 10 cents can be replaced with 1 silver coin, a 10-cent piece. This is the same as these. So instead of having to carry 10 cents with you, all you have to carry with you is a 10-cent piece. It's called a dime, we know, but let's call it a 10-cent piece. We'll just call it a 10. So this is a 1 coin, the 1-cent piece, and this is a 10 coin. Now, the way we're going to express that is we're going to take 2 places here. We're going to put the cents over in the first place, and we're going to put the tens over in the second place. Now, since there's only 10, we don't have any coins in the first place, so this is a 1, 0. And this 1 stands for a 10, and this 0 means that there are 0 cents, so it's 10 plus 1. 10 plus 0. So this is now the 10 place. Now we're going to go to the next number. Well, what we're going to do now, we could put 11 coins in here. They'd go up 11 like we did in the Cheerios. But what we're going to do is we're going to say, okay, we're going to take 10 of those and replace it with a 10. And then we've got a 1 coin in the second place. So this run on the right-hand side means we have 1 cent, 1. The 1 on the left means we have a 10. So this is 10-1. We'll just call this 10-1. Now I know we have another name for it, but we're going to call this 10-0 or just 10. This is 10-1. The next number is going to be 10-2 because we have this is equivalent to 10 cents and then plus 2 cents. So instead of having a big pile of these, we just got a 10 and a 2. The next one, of course, is going to be what? Instead of having to have a big stack of 13 of these 1-cent pieces, we're going to take 10 of them and replace it with a 10, which we call a dime, and we're going to call it a 10. So this is 10-3. 10-4, 10-5. What's going to come after 10-5? Well, of course, you know the answer to that. And I'm not even going to put them in, but it's going to be 10-6, 10-7, 10-8, 10-9. And now what happens? When we put another penny in, where there's 9 here, that'll make 10 of them, and that'll give us another 10. So in the next spot, we have 2 10s and a 0. So this is 2 10s. And then the next one will be, I may have missed, I might have had it in my camera. We have a 1, we have a 1, 9, we have a 10 here, and then we would have 9 pennies. I didn't put them in. I'm too lazy. So you can put them in. So this is a 10 and 9 pennies. When we add another cent, that would be 10 cents, and we'll replace that with a 10. So now we have 2 10s and 0 pennies, and then the next one would be 2 10s and a 1. And we call that 2 10s 0, or it is 2 10s, 2 10s 1. So the way we would count now, the easy way to count, the way Uncle Jack taught me to count to begin with, is you go 8, 9, then you go 10, 10, 1, 10, 2, 10, 3, 10, 4, 10, 5, 10, 6, 10, 7, 10, 8, 10, 9, and then you go 2 tens, and then 2 tens, 1, and so forth. And that's what he taught me. Now, we have numbers and names that we gave these, our ancestors did, so they didn't use this such a logical system. And I might tell you something. Some of the other languages actually use a system that's just simple. It makes life much easier. And we get to do an addition in a little bit. We'll see how that is. But we have 10, and then instead of saying 10-1, we say 11. And instead of saying 10-2, we say 12. Now here we say 13. Well, the third is the 3 here, and the teen would be like the 10. So 10-3 is 13. What's 10-4? 14. What's 10-5? There needs to be a 5th penny there to make that work out. Well, 10-5 would be what we call 15 or 15. And I didn't put the pennies in here. You'd have to add those in. But what would be 10-6? Well, we know it's called 16. What's 10-7? 17. 10-8? 18. 10-9? 19. And then what's 2 tens? Well, we call it 20. And then what's 2 tens, 1? We call it 21. So that's the nomenclature we have to teach our children. And you can write that out and so on and so forth. I'm just showing you what Uncle Jack taught me. I'm going over this rapidly. This is not how I would teach a child. I'm teaching you as a parent of how I would teach a child. This would all take several lessons to make sure they understood as we build up. And then on the next lesson, we're going to start talking about adding these larger numbers and how Uncle Jack taught me to do that. I imagine you can imagine that, but we'll talk about that on the next lesson. Now, oddly enough, things get simpler now. One of the hardest things for young students, through no fault of theirs, is instead of a simple thing like 10, 10-1, 10-2, 10-3, 10-4, we have, 11, 12, and then 13, 14. But when you get to 20, it now smooths back out the way it probably should always have been. We don't say 2 tens, we say 20. That's okay. 20, 21, 22, 23. And what does that mean? Well, what's 23? Well, that's 2 tens, that's 2 dimes, and it's 3 ones. That's 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29. So this would be 2 dimes 9, or 29. And then what do? When you add the next penny to it, the next 1 cent piece, you've got 10 of them, so that's another dime. So now it goes to 3 dimes. So it's 3 dimes 0, and then 3 dimes 1. And of course, instead of 3 dimes, or 3 tens, I should say, to be consistent, instead of 3 tens, we say 30. And that's okay, that's not so bad. 30. And then again we go, and I'll write it in here in a minute, but we go 30, 31, 32, up through 39, and then what do? We go to 4 tens, and that we call that 40, and so on and so forth. Okay, like I pointed out, we have 29, which would be 2 tens, 9, and then we add the next one, we end up with 10 ones, and that's the same as a 10, so we go to 3-0. So 2-9 to 3-0. Now, I'm going to start over here at 3-0, and I'm not going to write them in, but it'll be 3-1, 3-2, all the way out to 3-9, and then what comes after that? Well, when you add the 10th cent, now you've got another dime, or another 10, and so that's 4-0, or that's 10 fours. 4 tens, I should say. It's 4 tens, 0, and we don't say 4 tens, we say 40. Well, that's okay. And then we start at 40, we will go up to 49, and then we have 50, then 60, then 70, then 80, and then 90. Now we could say 4 tens, 5 tens, 6 tens. We don't. We say 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90. That's not so bad. And then what happens when we get out to 99? Now, that's going to be another interesting thing, and I think I'll wait and do that on the next video. But right now, and by the way, again, I want to emphasize, this is not how I would train a young child. a young student. I'm talking to you as an adult, as a parent. Presumably you know the number system, but you may be struggling with how to explain it in a methodical way that's understandable to your child. And I'm just sharing with you the way it was taught to me by my best math teacher when I was a young man. That was my Uncle Jack. I might add, I didn't have any teachers in school that could explain it this way. The way he explained it was I could understand it. I could understand this concept of two tens and a 1, and two tens 2, and two tens 3. And then I didn't mind the fact instead of two tens we said 20. And then we got up to the 30s. Instead of three tens we'd say 30. And four tens is 40 and so on. That didn't bother me. In fact, I could count to 100 easily when I was 5 years old when I entered first grade. That really amazed my teacher, Miss Lewis was her name, that I could count to 100 because she was trying to teach the other children. Now, by the way, there was no kindergarten back in those years, so this is our first year of school, and she was just trying to teach them to count to 10, the digits, and I already could count to 100, and she was amazed. Well, that was all, of course, thanks to what Uncle Jack had taught me, and you can teach this to a pretty young child. I would say children 4, 5, 6 years old can very easily understand what I'm telling you now. So now in the next lesson, I'm going to show you what Uncle Jack did. We got up to 90, 90, 91, 92. We got up to 99. And now what do you suppose how he taught me the next thing? What do you suppose he taught me next? You might think about that. I'm sure you could figure it out and do it. You know it, I'm sure. But how would you explain it to a young child, a 6-year-old child? So I will tell you now in the next video how Uncle Jack dealt with this after we got to the 99 and what he then taught me. And I will give you a hint, it did involve money.